Good morning, all of you. This is Ajra Azhar from Center for the Study of Human Rights, Faculty of Law, University of Colombo. Center for the Study of Human Rights is celebrating 30 years of excellence in human rights education, research, community outreach, and dissemination of knowledge. We are proud to mark this event as a celebration of 30 years anniversary. It is our utmost pride and pleasure to warmly welcome the family members of the late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry and distinguished guest for the ceremonial opening of the late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry's collection of books. Light is pretty universal symbol of truth, knowledge, and understanding. It acts as a guide, keeping us from stumbling in the dark, to spread positivity, energy, and happiness. Let's begin this auspicious event by lighting the oil lamp. Following the virtual arrival of guests and lighting of the oil lamp, we are moving on to the agenda items of this event. Judge Weeramantry was lovingly called by people close to him. Much has been written about during and after his lifetime, but still, as a remembrance of Justice C. Weeramantry, I would like to invite Ms. Eranga Disanaika, the staff of CSHR, to brief about late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry. Ms. Eranga, over to you.
Thank you, Sajra, for the opportunity. A very good morning to all of you. So today we are gathered here to launch the book collection of Justice C.G. Weeramantry. Professor Weeramantry is a world-renowned legal scholar and a former Vice President of the International Court of Justice, who has played a crucial role in strengthening of international law. His work demonstrates how international law can be used to address current global challenges such as the continued threat of nuclear weapons, the protection of human rights, and the protection of the environment. This collection has immensely contributed towards his publications and landmark judgments, which has made a remarkable impact on the well-being of the society. Justice Weeramantry gained a Bachelor of Arts honours from newly established University of Ceylon and went on to gain a LLB and LLG from King's College London. After completing the law exams at Sri Lanka Law College, he took oath as an advocate of the Supreme Court of Ceylon in 1948. Beginning his law practice in Colombo that went on until 1965, he was appointed Commissioner of Assize, holding the post until 1967, when he was called to the bench as a judge of the Supreme Court of Ceylon. He retired from the Supreme Court in 1972 and moved to Australia, where he assumed duties as Sir Haydn Stark Professor of Law at Monash University in Victoria. In 1991, he was appointed as a judge of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, becoming its vice president in 1997. He presided as vice president over several important cases before the court, including a case on the illegality of the use and threatened use of nuclear weapons. From 2000 to 2002, he served the ICJ as an ad hoc judge. Justice Weeramantry served on the Legal and Human Rights Advisory Board of the Genetic Policy Institute and the president of the International Association of Lawyers Against Nuclear Arms. In addition, C.G. Weeramantry was a counselor of the World Future Council and the honorary patron and international advisor of the Center of International Sustainable Development Law. He was Emeritus Professor at Monash University, having previously served as Sir Haydn Stark's Chair of Law from 1972 to 1991, A former lecturer and examiner at Sri Lanka Law College, he was a member of the Council of Legal Education in Ceylon. Justice Weeramantry has also served as a visiting professor at Harvard University, University of Hong Kong, University of Florida, University of Colombo, University of Papua New Guinea, University of Stellenbosch, and University of Tokyo. He was an honorary member of Advisory Committee of Environmental Law Institute and chairman of the International Council Institute of Sustainable Development, McGill University. Unfortunately, Justice Weeramantry left us in Colombo, Sri Lanka, of natural causes on 5th January 2017 at the age of 90. In 2020, the International Justice Award in memory of His Excellency Justice C.G. Weeramantry was announced for the first time to distinguish senior level jurists whose life work, intellect, and character offer the highest possible credit to the memory of Judge Weeramantry and his international legacy, including his concerns of the interest of current and future generations, his commitment to the international law, peace and sustainable development, and his global humanism and leadership in law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aranga. In the course of his professional career of over 5 decades as lawyer, legal educator, domestic and international judge, author, and lecturer, Justice Weeramantry had played multiple roles during his lifetime. Next, to deliver the welcome remarks, I would like to invite a person who plays an essential part towards the successful journey of CSHR and sets an exemplary standard for all of us with her work ethics and dedication. It's none other than our beloved director, Professor Vasantha Wijeratne, Head of the Department of Public and International Law, Faculty of Law, University of Colombo. Dear Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Ajra. Good morning from Sri Lanka and Ayubowan. Madam Vice Chancellor, University of Colombo, Senior Professor Chandrika N. Wijeratne, Dean of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Sampath Punchihewa, Professor Ramesh Weeramantry and the family members of Justice Weeramantry and the friends of late judge, members of the Board of Management of the CSHR, heads of the departments of the Faculty of Law and my faculty colleagues, Professor Tony Angi, Deputy Director of the CSHR, Mr. M. Hakim, distinguished invitees, CSHR staff, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with the quote of Honorable Late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry in one of his famous judgments named Hungary versus Slovakia as follows. Natural resources are not individually, but collectively owned, and a principle of their use is that they should be used for the maximum service of people. There should be no waste, and there should be a maximization of the use of plant and animal species while preserving their regenerative powers. The purpose of development is the betterment of the condition of the people. I believe many of such his other judgments, quotations from which we can learn a lot more than ever for the beautiful future of Sri Lanka as well as elsewhere. In that context, I wish to say I am privileged to welcome all of you at this virtual opening ceremony of late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry's book collection, donated to the Information and Documentation Center of the Center for the Study of Human Rights. We are humbled to receive the invaluable collection of books belong to highly respected jurist, philosopher, professor, and former Vice President of the International Court of Justice to our university and thus to the CSHR. The trust and confidence kept on us by this generous gift by the family of late Justice Weeramantry is well honored by us by preserving at its best and all the time, same time giving the benefit to use them for studies and research to enhance the scholarship in the areas where Judge himself had contributed immensely and resultantly being rewarded globally. I still remember that at the funeral of late Justice, to which the law faculty staff respectfully gathered to pay our last tribute to the world-renowned judge, the family was very thoughtful of continuing the great legacy of him and kindly informed us that this treasured collection of literature at the possession of late judge will be donated to us. Professor Indira Nanayakara, former Dean of the Faculty of Law, discussed this very kind gesture of Judge Weeramantry's family with me, and we thought that the best place to treasure it will be none other than the library of the CSHR, which is reputed for its rich collection of books on multitude of disciplines relating to law, human rights, politics, sociology, philosophy, and many more, to name a few. We have been arranging for the ceremonial opening of this collection for more than an year or more. The pandemic hampered all those our efforts. Professor Weeramantry was planning to physically visit Sri Lanka to take part in the opening ceremony, but the outbreak of corona prevented it. It's my pleasure to announce now that we are ready to share the legacy of the wisdom of our most reputed late judge through the opening of the use of this collection today. And I'm very grateful to Madam Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor Chandrika N Wijeratne, for kindly gracing this occasion amidst of her great responsibilities and commitments, and for facilitating us to have this ceremony. Welcome you, dear Madam, very respectfully. You are the chairperson of the CSHR Board of Management and always direct us to navigate to achieve the vision and mission of the CSHR at its highest excellence. Thank you, Madam. Dean Faculty of Law, Dr. Punchihewa, you always encourage and support the CSHR, which is an integral segment of the Faculty of Law, to run smoothly and effectively. Welcome you, sir, and thank you for your enormous support throughout to achieve the distinction in our work. Professor Weeramantry, family members, Professor Tony Angi, need to be proud this much and to declare open this valuable collection to the users. In spite of time differences of regions, you all gathered to witness the great tribute to late judge, who is not only a great pride and honor to your family alone, but to the entire world today. My mere words will not suffice to thank you for the generosity of your family for determining to give this precious collection to us. And I pledge that it will be treasured and preserved whilst giving the careful use of it by the readership, who will be privileged to do so and to produce more and more masterpieces along the trails opened by the judge. Welcome all of you, and my gratitude to you too for your kindness as well. Thank you. I warmly welcome all the Board of Management members gathered here today and all the distinguished guests who kindly accepted our invitation. Heads of the departments of the Faculty of Law and my colleagues of Faculty of Law, Deputy Director and the Center for the Center for the Study of Human Rights staff. All of you are welcome, despite you all are not, in fact, the guests or the strangers to us. It is not easy to welcome all by name and designations. Please bear with me if I have not mentioned everyone in name and with designation. All of your well wishes for the development of the CSHR is tremendous and valuable to all of us. So thank you so much for participating in today's event and warmly welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for establishing a delightful opening remark as always. Accomplishing incredible success is not a sprint, it is a marathon that one needs to keep on running and achieve one milestone after the other. And believe me, Dr. N.S. Punchihewa, the Dean Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, is a super runner who hails many success stories achieved within a shorter time span. The pleasure is ours to invite you to deliver the address. Over to you.
Very good morning. Very good morning, everybody. Dear Madam Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor Chandrika N. Wijeratne, Director, CSHR, and her staff. distinguished family members of late Justice C.J. Weeramantry, and distinguished invitees and dear students. I'm truly delighted to speak few words at this virtual opening of late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry collection of books and database. As previously stated, Professor Weeramantry is a renowned scholar and legal luminary who has tremendously contributed to the advancement of legal science at the international level. And Professor Weeramantry is a living heritage of wisdom to everybody who knows him and also to the future generation. And Professor Weeramantry's contribution in international plane has been renowned and also accepted by all legal discourses and international policy making. As you know, the World Environmental UN Climate Conference, COP26, which will be launched on 30th October, is about the protection of environment. And Sir Weeramantry was the pioneering person who in his judgments emphasized the need of protecting international environmental justice, advancing international environmental justice. And I think he will be remembered at the World's Leaders Conference that when we speak about the international protection of environmental law. So I think he will be remembered forever, and his living heritage of wisdom will be remembered by legal scholars and students around the world. And as you may know that as once Albert Einstein mentioned that it is the only thing that you absolutely have to know is the location of the library, and it is not far away. It is in the top ranking university in Sri Lanka, namely the University of Colombo, and we will offer his collection of Professor Weeramantry's books and research papers by one click, because we are going to open a database, which is now in today's context is incredibly useful for everybody, because we are living in challenging times triggered by COVID-19 pandemic. I think this one-click library database would be of enormous use to the researchers around the world. So I would not take much time, but I know that the library, the collection of books will be an enormous resource to the University of Colombo, and we treasure it as the Dean Faculty of Law. I must say that Professor Weeramantry visited law faculty quite frequently. Whenever he visited Sri Lanka, as a student, we admired him. As a staff member, I had legal discourses with him when he visited the faculty. So he's remembered very much during our lifetime and also in the next generation. So this is a great initiative by the family of late Justice Christopher Weeramantry, and we assure that the collection will be in the hands of good care, and we want to promote it throughout the academic circles. So I will not speak much longer than this. I thank you for the opportunity and also very productive session.
Yes, sir. You always provide a unique perspective. Thank you for sharing your experiences as well. It makes my day to hear that. Ladies and gentlemen, next, may I cordially invite Madam Vice Chancellor Chandrika N. Wijeratne, Senior Professor, University of Colombo, who had a phenomenal academic as well as professional journey with an excellent leadership skill and exceptional commitment. Professor Wijeratne has an unfailing research record with multi-sector and international collaboration and outreach. She has over 75 publications in peer-reviewed journals and supervised research into a wide array of topics for over a dozen PhDs and MD by thesis. It is an honor for us to have you at this auspicious ceremony. Madam Vice Chancellor, over to you.
Thank you. A very good morning, and Ayubowan from the University of Colombo. Thank you, Azra, for those very kind words, which I feel very humbled by. Honorable judges of the Supreme and Appellate Court and the Dean, Faculty of Law, the heads of departments, and the director of the Center for Study of Human Rights, Professor Wijeratne, and the entire members of the board, as well as the staff of the CSHR. Respected members of the family of the late Justice Professor Weeramantry, and friends of the family, as well as associates of the late Justice Weeramantry, our students, colleagues, well-wishers, and ladies and gentlemen. Today indeed is a red letter day as far as the University of Colombo's Faculty of Law is concerned, in remembering and officially handing over, taking over his legacy, the legacy of the late Professor Weeramantry, who is a true son of our university as well as Sri Lanka. We are indeed proud of him and all his achievements and contributions, and no doubt the law library that will be enhanced through his own collections would be preserved as stated by Dean, as well as diversified so that many generations of our students and alumni would be well aware of all the contributions made both locally and internationally by the late Justice Weeramantry. To the best of my knowledge, where I have had one or two from a non-legal perspective interactions with the late Justice Weeramantry, simply because my late father and he were contemporaries in school. And it was a wonderful exercise to speak to him and get to know his wide-angle views of many aspects of life, not only of environment. And he was truly a very important public intellectual as far as our university is concerned, and no doubt country. So in these days of digital transformation, libraries have to be preserved and no doubt digitized so that we preserve these collections, but maintain the on-site, in-person interactions with those wonderful books and journals and monographs, which an erudite scholar like the late Justice Weeramantry would have collected with so much of commitment and pleasure. We all know that our students come from many parts of the country. They have to face many challenges, but having gone through the mill, through the university, through the faculty, through such wonderful centers like the CSHR, they turn out to be the best of the best in our country and region and the world. And therefore, we will be doing him proud, the late Justice Weeramantry, in ensuring that all our students, through the good officers of the library, have learned how to read, assimilate, and also develop into critical thinkers and analytical thinkers to become the true scholars of Sri Lanka and our university. So thank you once again to the family of the late Justice Weeramantry for having chosen the University of Colombo to be the guardian of the legacy that your wonderful member of the family has collected with so much care. And we pledge that we will keep the flag flying and remember him on a perpetual mode. And that commitment will remain to the very day that we continue as the University of Colombo, the pioneer of higher education in Sri Lanka. Thank you, stay safe, and we look forward to meeting physically at the location in time to come. Thank you.
Dear Madam Vice Chancellor, thanks for always bringing great ideas to the table. Working under your leadership has been the best thing ever happened to me in my professional life. Thank you, Madam. I cordially invite Madam Vice Chancellor again for the ribbon cutting as a ceremonial opening of the late Justice C.G. Weeramantry's collection of books.
We will now walk through the collection. This collection is separately displayed at the CSHR Resource Center premises and have been categorized into sections under the headings Law, Human Rights, History, Religion, War, Ethics, Nuclear, Political Science, Literature, Social Science, Peace, Social Help, Dictionary, Biography, Science and books related to Sri Lanka. Reading through the pages that was once read and held by Professor Weeramantry is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity a person can get for sure.
Thank you so much, Madam. Hope you all enjoyed. And now the photographs are a way to capture the beautiful moments of our life and cherish them forever. I kindly request all of you to switch on your cameras for a couple of seconds. Let's have a group picture. People don't capture photos, they capture memories and happy moments. We feel nostalgic when they saw these pictures in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rohan Pereira, former permanent representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations, happily agreed to address the event, but unfortunately, due to his sudden illness, he is unable to grace this occasion, and we pray for his quick recovery. I kindly invite Professor Vasantha Seneviratne, the Director of CSHR, to read out the note sent by Dr. Rohan Pereira. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Ajra. Madam Vice Chancellor, I was very touched by Dr. Amrit Rohan Pereira that despite that he was suddenly hospitalized, he was very thoughtful that he undertook this responsibility and he was very worried about how that to be delivered. So he has sent some notes to be read out. So while wishing him a speedy recovery, let me read it out. He has begun to say some thoughts on the contribution of Judge Dr. C.G. Weeramantry's contribution to the interpretation of international law. He begins to say the contribution of Judge Dr. C.G. Weeramantry to the progressive development of international law could be assessed by the impact that was made by the number of separate and dissenting opinions he delivered during his tenure of 9 years. In his opinions, he covered a wide range of subject matter. Among the subjects dealt with were the concept of equity in international law and its relevance in maritime delimitation in Denmark versus Norway judgment, the exercise of the respective power of the court and of the Security Council in a harmonious manner in giving effect to the principles of the Charter in Libyan Arab Jamahiriya versus USA, known as Lockerbie Incident judgment, and on the evolution of the concept of sustainable development, intergenerational equities over centuries in Hungary versus Slovakia, to name a few. However, the most dynamic and far-reaching interpretation of international law was contained in his strong dissent in the advisory opinion on the legality of the threat or use of nuclear weapons case. In his dissent, he unequivocally stated that the threat or use of such weapons is unlawful in any circumstance. The majority recognized that the large number of UN resolutions prohibiting the threat or use of nuclear weapons reveal the desire of a very large section of international community by a specific and express prohibition on the use of nuclear weapons to take a significant step forward complete nuclear disarmament. However, it went on to hold the emergence as lex lata of a customary rule of a prohibition of nuclear weapons is hampered by continuing tensions between the nascent opinion juries on the one hand and the still strong adherence to the concept of deterrence by the nuclear weapon states on the other. The majority opinion has been widely criticized, in particular by nuclear disarmament groups, as sanctifying a policy of power projection by a limited group of nuclear powers. However, Judge Weeramantry's examination of the historic evolution of humanitarian principles, tracing back to ancient times, and the devastating impact that the use of such weapons would have on humanity, and his conclusion that nuclear weapons are prohibited in all circumstances, stands out as a forthright judicial pronouncement on a matter of vital concern to humanity. Being forthright at all times was a great hallmark of Judge C.G. Weeramantry's character. The loss he suffered in his bid for re-election and perhaps become the president of the court may have been weighed in the minds of a lesser person, but obviously this was furthest from his mind. Thank you. I believe that as Dr. Pereira's son informed me, he wanted to elaborate this to a great detail, but this is the note that we received. Thank you, Dr. Rohan Pereira, for your very kind gesture by sending this and at a time that you are sick. And we wish you speedy recovery, sir. Thank you, madam, and the distinguished gathering.
Thank you, madam. Moving on to the next agenda item, I warmly welcome Professor Nazima Kamardeen, Commercial Law, Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, to deliver the speech on the title of Contributions Made by Late Justice C.G. Weeramantry for the Development of International Law.
Madam Vice Chancellor, Dean Faculty of Law, members of the family of Judge Weeramantry, distinguished invitees, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to briefly outline the contribution made by Judge C.G. Weeramantry to international law. I stress the words briefly outline, for to examine it to its rightful extent is a task of many hours. Judge Weeramantry is probably the only jurist whose work adorns the libraries of all international lawyers everywhere, and of every Sri Lankan judge, practitioner, and legal researcher. This is due to his proficiency in every sphere of law, be it contract, human rights, environmental law, technological law, or jurisprudence. The depth and breadth of his mastery of his subject is well illustrated in the insightful judgments written by him when he was a judge of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka. While many see a position on the bench as the apex of their careers, for Judge Weeramantry, it was perhaps only just the beginning. He went on to distinguish himself as a jurist and scholar of such high repute that he was eventually invited to serve on the International Court of Justice and rose to the position of vice president of that hallowed institution. A man of no pretenses, to the end he remained satisfied, nay, even proud of his Sri Lankan identity, even though he knew that his motherland had not the resources to propel him to a higher position in that institution, something he was personally more than qualified for. However, Judge Weeramantry proved that one's position does not matter in the quality of one's work. He remains to this day one of the most eminent and respected jurists of all time. His opinions on international law are amongst the most widely read, highly cited, and universally relevant jurisprudence of our times. Stephen Schweber, a former president of the International Court of Justice, writing the foreword to Judge Weeramantry's book, Tread Lightly on the Earth, noted that what made Judge Weeramantry remarkable was the depth and breadth of his knowledge of interdisciplinary bodies of learning, which he used to enrich international law. Even before multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary forms of inquiry became popular in research, Judge Weeramantry was using it to enhance jurisprudence at the very highest level. This multifaceted approach helped him to make holistic connections between seemingly abstract concepts, and he was able to weave them seamlessly and present them with the utmost clarity to his audience. In his opinion on the case between Hungary and Slovakia concerning the dam over the Danube River, he presented with apt examples the idea that sustainable development, coined by the Brundtland Commission in the 1980s, had in fact been practiced in Sri Lanka since ancient times. Using the engineering marvel of the gradient of the Jayaganga as an example, he illustrated how the kings of yore ensured that water was used to its optimal level with minimum wastage. In arguing for the concept of state guardianship or trusteeship, he illustrated how, when Buddhism was first introduced to Sri Lanka by the Arahat Mahinda in the 3rd century BC, he found the king hunting and informed him that though he was the king, he was merely the guardian of his realm and not its owner. Judge Weeramantry's analysis reveals that the Buddhist philosophy differentiated between ownership and guardianship. Ownership brings with it the rights of use, enjoyment, and destruction, or as the Romans had identified, utendi, fruendi, and abutendi, while guardianship is centered around the best interest principle, which is widely used in contemporary legal remedies involving vulnerable populations. Judge Weeramantry also argued that Buddhism had correctly rejected the anthropocentric view of environment, which modern society could not shake off, even in the 1972 Stockholm and 1992 Rio declarations on the environment. More contemporary environmental jurisprudence, which focuses on acknowledging the rights of all beings, including flora and environmental features, has been influenced to a great extent by this landmark opinion, which has also been instrumental in shaping the environmental jurisprudence of individual nations. Take, for example, the judgment of Justice A.R.B. Amarasinghe in the Epawala case in Sri Lanka. His lordship cited with approval many of the points that had been made by Judge Weeramantry in the Hungary versus Slovakia case, in ruling that granting approval for the project would be detrimental to sustainable development, violate the principle of public trusteeship, and prove inimical to the interests of the environment in its wider context. Judge Weeramantry's contribution to international law can be further analyzed by reference to the dissenting opinion he wrote on the legality of the threat or use of nuclear weapons. The opinion traverses many areas of international law, demonstrating his skill as advocate, judge, jurist, and philosopher. While analyzing with clinical precision the legal rules relating to the use of force, the potential dangers of nuclear weapons, and humanitarian law, he also referred to many of the religious doctrines that called for pacifism. I am particularly struck by the excerpt taken from Valpula Rahula's work, What the Buddha Taught, quoted at page 481 of the opinion, where he negates the concept of the just war. And I quote, "According to Buddhism, there is nothing that can be called a just war, which is only a false term coined and put into circulation to justify and excuse hatred, cruelty, violence, and massacre. Who decides what is just and unjust? The mighty and the victorious are just, and the weak and the defeated are unjust. Our war is always just, and your war is always unjust. Buddhism does not accept this position." Unquote. It was this position of non-violence that he advocated through his opinion. He warned that the justification of any degree of violence and any degree in the use of nuclear weapons would ultimately destroy mankind. It was his personal belief as well, and it is the strength of this conviction that makes his opinion one of the most influential jurisprudential works to deal with the topic of nuclear weapons. Judge Weeramantry developed international jurisprudence in all its varied contexts. When the city of Hague celebrated its 750th anniversary, it selected 18 areas in which it had excelled over the years and one personality to represent each of them. It is little wonder that they selected Judge Weeramantry to represent its excellence in international justice, honoring him with a month-long exhibition of his work at the City Hall. So, what could we term his greatest contribution to international law? While he was not afraid to take on controversial topics and state his position on them, I believe that his greatest contribution lies in an area that the law has long striven to shake off its relationship with, and that is religion. While many see religion as deeply divisive, archaic, and ill-suited to the realities of modern life, Judge Weeramantry saw in it an enormous potential for good. Though he was a Christian by birth, by education he became an ambassador of all religions and philosophies, drawing comparisons between them for the greater good of humanity. His book, Tread Lightly on the Earth, illustrates how each of the world's major religions advocate environmental protection. In all his international legal opinions, he has drawn inspiration from religious doctrine to promote fairness, equality, respect for life and the environment. In an age where religion divides us more than it unites us, we would be well advised to reflect on how he looked at religion and its purpose. To conclude, in my brief interactions with him as a research assistant on one of his many projects, what I remember most vividly is that his example always matched his precept. What Weeramantry the jurist opined and Weeramantry the judge declared was exactly what Weeramantry the man embodied. Thank you.
Dear Madam, indeed, it's a great speech. It's our pleasure to hear from you. Thank you. Next agenda item. It is an honor to invite Professor Ramesh Weeramantry, the family member of Justice Weeramantry, to grace this occasion. Dr. Ramesh Weeramantry is the head of International Dispute Settlement at the National University of Singapore, Center for International Law, and an adjunct professor at the NUS Faculty of Law. In addition, he practices in the fields international commercial arbitration and investor-state disputes as counsel at Clifford Chance in Singapore. his career has included positions as a legal officer at the United Nations Compensation Commission and a legal advisor to the President of the Iran-United States Claims Tribunal. Dear sir, over to you.
Vice Chancellor, Dean of the Faculty of Law, and the Director and Deputy Director of the Center for the Study of Human Rights, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to address you today on behalf of the family. We were deeply touched by the willingness of Colombo University to embrace the idea of creating a special library to house the collection of books that were used and treasured by our father, the late Justice C.G. Weeramantry. And we were delighted to hear that the university and the Center for the Study of Human Rights had arranged this very thoughtful and touching ceremony, especially given the administrative and organizational difficulties they must have faced in the midst of the COVID pandemic. All of the family hoped one day to visit the collection when travel restrictions ease. We also found some more books of our father that would love to add to the library at a later date if that can be accommodated. And we celebrate today both my father and his love for learning, which is manifested in the wonderful book collection that you've seen here today. I'd like to start though with a bit of background history. My father's desire for learning was generated by both his mother and father. In the first volume of his memoirs, Towards One World, my father describes his mother, Lillian, as a scholar to her fingertips, who was a lover of literature and history and transmitted those loves to me. She was one of the earliest Sri Lankan women to have passed the Cambridge Senior Exam and was a teacher at Presbyterian Girls' School until her marriage to my grandfather, my father's father, Gregory Weeramantry. In my father's memoirs, he introduces his father in the following endearing terms. I believe it would not be possible to place my work and attitudes in their proper context without some understanding of my father's work and attitudes, which did so much to mold my own. Moreover, although law has been my principal field of interest throughout life, it has been in association with education, an abiding interest I inherited from my father, to whom education was a vocation. So like his mother, his father was also an educator. And although Catholic, his father taught at schools of all denominations, including Buddhist and Muslim, before going on to found Alexandra College in Colombo. Gregory Weeramantry was also a founder and first secretary of the All Ceylon Union of Teachers, believing that the collective weight of all teachers in the country could win more for the profession than the work of an individual. Now, this opening background helps in large measure to link with today's ceremony and explain the content of my father's book collection. The link with today's ceremony is the importance my father placed on education. He would have deeply appreciated what the Center for the Study of Human Rights has done with his books. And he wrote those books according to the following subject categories. We heard them before, but I think it's important to state them again, just to show the diversity involved. Law, human rights, religion, war, nuclear weapons, literature, science, social science, biography, social help, and political science. As can be easily discerned, this is a cross-disciplinary library, not simply for lawyers. That is what is so important about this collection. It was compiled by one of the world's leading lawyers who saw law not just as black letter sanctions, but also in its social context. He wanted to harness the potential of the law to improve people, society, and governance, and not simply on the domestic plane, but also internationally. And not just for the present, but for future generations. This high aim is reflected in the great diversity of the titles found in the collection. I'll name but a few of these titles to illustrate the point. You have books titled Social Science and the Judiciary. One is called History of Western Philosophy. One is entitled Aid as Imperialism. Another, Law Without Sanctions. There's one titled The Case Against the Bomb. Another, Masters of Political Thought. The list goes on and on. It goes into religion. There's one book called Buddhism in the Eyes of Intellectuals. And obviously it also focuses on law. One book is called The Role of the Independent Judiciary, another, The Majesty of the Law. So we see wide-ranging themes in these books, which include the threat of nuclear weapons, the protection of human rights and the environment, and the contribution of religion to peaceful coexistence. Many of my father's publications and judgments emerge from the ideas contained in these books, but we also see his love for history and literature, which also shaped his thoughts. I'm confident that my father's spirit will shine through this collection. I hope that it will become a place that is able to inspire current and future generations of Sri Lankans to use the ideas and thoughts contained inside it, as my father did, to make a better life for themselves, their communities, and for the world that lies beyond the beautiful waters of Sri Lanka. So on behalf of the Weeramantry family, I thank and congratulate Colombo University and the Centre for the Study of Human Rights for all the hard work and effort put in to create this wonderful collection. From what I've seen on the webpage, they've done a marvelous job. I wish my father could have seen it. He would have smiled broadly and would have beamed with pride. Thank you.
So much, sir, for the wonderful words and generous donation to the organization. And we kindly invite you to share the screen and launch the online database of late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry's collection of books. Following the online launch, we could see some golden quotes of late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry, which were enlightening, depicts the wisdom of humanity. These are some of his publications, as we already mentioned in the speeches, the enriched publications. provided a rich literature to the jurisprudence of legal sphere. Finally, landmark rulings, the judgments, it facilitated the progressive development of international law. Ladies and gentlemen, we are close to the closure of the events. Every organization requires a person with an abundance of positive vibe and confidence to get things done perfectly with great directions. Our Deputy Director plays an essential part towards the successful journey of CSHR. To show gratitude on behalf of CSHR, I cordially invite Mr. M.A.M. Hakim, Senior Lecturer, Department of Public and International Law, University of Colombo. Dear sir, over to you.
Thank you, Ajra. Good morning to all. Madam Vice Chancellor, Professor Weeramantry, Dr. Sampath Punchihewa, Dean, Faculty of Law, Professor Wijeratne, Director, CSHR, family members of late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry, members of the Board of Management of the CSHR, staff of the Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, and the CSHR, distinguished guests, invitees, well-wishers, ladies and gentlemen. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion of opening late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry's collection of books. Let me first of all start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our special guest, Senior Professor Chandrika N. Wijeratne, Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, and the Chairperson of the Board of Management of the CSHR. Despite her busy schedule, Madam Vice Chancellor has found time to grace this occasion virtually, being with us till the end of this program. Thank you, Madam, for your leadership and your guidance throughout the activities of the CSHR. I would like to thank all the members of the Board of Management of the CSHR for accepting our invitation and gracing this occasion amidst their busy schedule in the morning hours of a working day. We are grateful to Professor Weeramantry for his words of encouragement and for being with us, in touch with us for many months in the process of organizing this event, despite several challenges due to the ongoing pandemic situation. Professor Ramesh provided us all the necessary support and encouragement to make this event success, though this event was postponed on several times. Thank you, Professor, for your kindness, support, encouragement, and making your virtual presence today. My heartfelt thanks to all the members, friends, and associates of late Professor Justice Weeramantry's family, for accepting our humble invitation and participating with enthusiasm at this event. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Dr. Rohan Pereira for accepting our invitation to deliver the keynote address. However, Dr. Pereira could not make it due to his health condition. Thank you, sir. We pray for your speedy recovery and God bless you, sir. Further, we are grateful to Professor Nazima Kamardeen for accepting our last-minute request to address the gathering on the contribution made by late Justice Professor C.G. Weeramantry for the development of international law, and she did a very enlightening and comprehensive keynote address. Thank you so much, Professor Nazima, for your informative and inclusive note on the contribution made by Judge Weeramantry. My heartfelt thanks to the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Nishantha Sampath Punchihewa, for your virtual gracing this occasion and for your valuable contribution, guidance, and encouragement in all our activities of the CSHR. Thank you, sir. I thank all the distinguished invitees, especially members of the Board of Management of the CSHR, heads of the departments, and members of the academic and administrative staff of the faculty for your virtual presence here with us, accepting our invitation. I owe a special gratitude to the staff of the CSHR team, Ms. Mahesha, Ms. Tilini, Ms. Ajira, and Ms. Eranga, and other members of the team who worked hard to ensure that this occasion becomes a memorable success. Last but not the least, I thank our team leader, Professor Wijeratne, Director of the CSHR, for her kindness, guidance, tolerance, and optimism in all our activities, who work behind the screen, bearing all the burden. Thank you so much, madam, for your leadership and your encouragement to all of us. Finally, I leave you this inspiring quote by Martin Luther King in remembrance of Judge Weeramantry. I quote, "An individual has not started living until he raises above the confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity," unquote. Justice Weeramantry's exceptional scholarship and incomparable jurisprudential contribution to the broader concerns of all humanity. It will be remembered until the last segment of humanity remains on this globe. My prayers grant to him eternal rest. Let light perpetual shine upon him. May his soul, through mercy of God, rest in peace. Once again, I thank you all for your attention and participation at this historical event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We are grateful to have all of these expertise and esteemed participants. Thank you. The session ends.